What we'll be going over today is the one-way repeated measures ANOVA. And if you recall, one-way ANOVA just means that we have one independent variable, but it has three or more levels. So to set up this type of test in SPSS, what you do is you think of each level of the independent variable as a separate variable. So if we go into variable view, for this question we're looking at the different relaxation techniques, and so for each person they were measured at baseline, and then they received meditation, comedy, nature, or music, and they were measured on some sort of relaxation dependent variable. So when you do a one-way repeated measures, you need to set up each level of the independent variable as a separate variable. And so for each participant, we enter their scores for each level, as you can see here. So once you have all your data entered, the next step would be to run the test. We are going to go to Analyze, General Linear Model, not this second one, that's plural, just this first one. And we're doing a repeated measures ANOVA. So with this box, it wants to know how many independent variables you have, and so we have overall one, and that would be the condition of the relaxation treatment. But it also asks you how many levels are in that independent variable, and so here we have 5. Baseline, meditation, comedy, nature, and music. So we'll go ahead and add that. So this is telling SPSS that we have one independent variable called condition that has 5 levels. So just like the independent or t-test, we need to define our groups. And so here on the left we see all of our variables, or levels of the independent variable I should say. And on the right we need to move them just so SPSS knows what the levels are. So very easily we're just going to move baseline over, that'll be 1, meditation will be 2, comedy 3, nature 4, and music 5. Now with our example we don't really care what order they're in, but if you have one that is a repeated measures or a time series design, where you have before, during, and after perhaps, then you would want before as 1, during as 2, and after as 3. Before we click OK, we want to head on over to Options. And down here in the left part of display, just go ahead and click next to Descriptive Statistics. That'll give us our means and standard deviations for each level or for each relaxation treatment. Press OK, or continue, excuse me, and now we press OK. SPSS gives us a lot of output for this. What we want to focus on is the descriptive statistics. So we see here for each condition the mean and standard deviation. Then we can skip multivariate tests, skip Mauchly's test of sphericity, and this is the box we really want. Test of within subjects effects. If you'll notice, it looks very similar to the chart that we do by hand when we're doing an ANOVA. And you're going to ignore this greenhouse geyser, Hunefeld, and lower bound. Just look at condition and error for sphericity assumed. So we have our sum of squares, which is divided by our degrees of freedom to get our mean squares. For the condition, so the levels of our relaxation treatment. And then we have the same thing for our error. We have sum of squares, degrees of freedom, and our mean squares. If we divide this mean squares of condition over mean squares of error, we'll get our F of 235.531 with a significance or p-value of 0. So we could conclude that yes, this test is significant, and we can reject the null, meaning that there is a difference between the levels of relaxation treatment. And that is a one-way ANOVA, repeated measures in SPSS.